So as we wait for any others to pop on, before we get started, do you want to give us a quick little bio on you, maybe how long you've been in real estate or whatever you want to say?
So I've actually been in real estate for about 11, 12 years. I started off as Ron Russell from Russell Real Estate, his personal assistant, an admin. And then in 2017, I got licensed and I joined Keller Williams and I was on a big team. And then I did a brief stint at EXP for 6.5 months. And now I'm back.
Wonderful. So, Sarah, with your experience on a team, working as a solo agent, you're also help coaching, productivity coaching. You are like the queen of mastering the showing. So thank you for being here with us today.
No problem.
And we will just get right to it. So let's start at the beginning of whether this is a new person or you know them. Is there anything you are asking prior to your showing to the buyer?
So I try to do a buyer's consultation always before, either in person or virtual, like Zoom or something. And I'll ask them what they're looking for, where they want to live, why they want to live there, what their time frame is. Have they spoke to a lender, or are we doing cash? And I need to see those proof of funds. And if they haven't spoken to a lender, then I give them 3 lenders to choose from that I think will best fit them. And I just ask, what their work schedule's like. Are they available? If they're a married couple, can one make a decision without the other? Do we have to FaceTime, or do I have to go back and forth to the houses? It's just knowing and setting the boundaries. Like I tell a lot of them, they can't text me before 9 a.m. unless it's an emergency.
Good
and
for
they can't
you.
and they can't text me after 8 p.m.
Okay. Or like they can, but you don't expect a response.
Correct. And if I do respond, it's a one-off, and I was just got done showings or something.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. When you said, show me the proof of funds, the age-old question, what do you do? Will you take people out before they're approved? What's your go-to rule of thumb on that?
I'll usually do it once, and that's when I get a feeler to see if they're just looky-loos or if they're actually serious. I'll usually do it once with everyone, but then I say like, hey, next showing, if you want to see more, I got to see what we're approved for. We got to see what your payment will be, how much of taxes you can do. Can you afford a HOA, or are we going FHA? It's like, there's so much.
Yes, there is. There absolutely is. So it's funny. I would also tell people, if you're in your first year of real estate, like, yes, on one side, like absolutely set your boundaries. And on the flip side, absolutely give them one, because it's just going to give you experience, especially if you're in that first year. So I understand that sometimes they'll be like, you could even be at a showing and they're like, hey, can we add whatever house down the street that they just saw that was for sale on the way to the showing? But if time allows, what are you doing to prepare for a showing? Like, say there is time, it's going to be tomorrow at 4. What do you do to be readily prepared for the showing?
So I always print out a agent full sheet and a buyer full sheet. Sometimes I will show them a copy of the agent full, especially if there's a lot in the broker's remarks. So that way they're aware. I print out disclosures or any information reports on that. And then I reach out to the agent, just especially in this market, to see, when you accepting offers till, is there a deadline? What do I need to prep my buyers for? And what are they looking for?
That is so smart to do before, because so many people will, okay, if you like it, I'll reach out to the listing agent. But here, you're going to be better prepared at your showing with your buyers because you've already talked to the listing agent. Correct. And you already know the intel. And I think, especially in the day and age of Zillow, and people can find a lot out online, and Zillow makes the public feel like they are also a real estate agent. Whether they are or they're not, that's how they feel. So that is something I think that can set you apart. That's huge. I love that. Okay, just logistics. How early do you arrive? And is there anything you do prior to your client arriving?
I try to arrive always 5 to 10 minutes early, but showings, if I'm going from one group to another group, sometimes I'm running late and I just text them like, hey, got caught up in Brunswick. I'll be in Parma as fast as I can. If I get there early, I typically do open the door and I will turn on lights, or I'll call the agent and be like, any offers, anything I gotta worry about.
Mhm.
Just so
Mhm.
that way, especially a hot area like Parma or Strongsville, they're moving without being a full day on the market.
Yes. Yeah, that is so, so true. Sometimes it's just fly there by the seat of your pants.
Truly is.
Okay, so this one could be a bigger question. Talk to me about honesty and pointing out defects in the home. How do you handle this? Like, of course, we want to be honest and we don't want to like Vanna White, yet we also don't want to be an alarmist. So, what is your methodology as far as that goes?
So I actually tell all my clients, they will notice I look up first and then down. I always look at the ceilings. I do point out like if there's settling cracks, what seems to be some moisture, like anything that could cost them money. That's how, and that way, if we go under contract and we do an inspection, they're already aware of it.
Mhm.
I kind of
That
look
is
for the big items.
Yes, 100% it. And I also think if you can tell them something that you know their home inspector is going to point out, like they think you are the greatest thing and smartest thing since.
So from that inspection I just came from, I pointed out the age of the air conditioner, like all the mechanical. So when he pointed it out, she's like, "Oh yeah, I know. Like I know I got to prep for replacing an air conditioning unit in the next few years."
Mhm.
And I prepped, like we tried opening windows, and two of the windows were stuck. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got that."
Yes. Oh, so you're opening windows and everything in the showing. That's
Yes, I'm usually opening windows or trying like sometimes cabinet doors,
Mhm.
especially if it's just me and my client in the house. If there's like a lot of people, I always just tell them like we probably got to move fast. So look for your big ticket items.
Yes, without a doubt. And truly, when you think about it, it's like the inspection is for, is there is something so major that we didn't see in the showing that it would cause us to walk away? You know, it's not to, I mean, and maybe as the market changes and it's more of a
Mhm.
buyer's market, it will be to nickel and dime the sellers. But right now in this market, it's almost like set the expectation right out of the gate of we're doing an inspection out of protection for you, not to have our GFCI outlets updated and so on and so forth.
And that's a good thing to know, like especially if you work with certain inspectors, like just know how much they're going to be and be like, "Hey guys, it's nothing." Like you
Mhm.
can either replace it, do a DIY if you want to try it yourself, or hire an electrician if you know one, and maybe just have everything tuned up. Like
Yes.
I always look for the big ticket items of foundation, roof, HVAC, and windows because windows are so behind.
That's very true. And I always hear the basement and the attic tell the story.
Mm-hmm. They
That's
really do.
minor. Okay, that is great. Also, are you familiar with DISC?
I am.
I am pretty sure you are. So if you are listening, and we're going to record this as well, if you're not familiar, DISC is a personality assessment. It stands for DISC. And I think the more you can understand people and who you're working with, the better you're going to be in a showing. So Sarah, how do you change your showings accordingly? Like, do you pay attention to personality profiles and how do you adjust?
So I do. I usually try to mirror my clients as much as I can without getting to the level of being like alarmist or some that are just like, oh, it's fine, whatever. Like I try to do that happy medium where it's like after I say about 2 or 3 showings, you know your clients. You know
Mhm.
what they're looking for, you know the attitude, the temperament. So I will go up to them and be like, hey guys, just an FYI, like I saw this in this part of the house. I don't think it'll be bad. We'll get an inspection. Or if I know they're like very analytical, I'll look for like they'll look at all numbers and any numbers. So
Mhm.
I point out then, hey, we gotta do this, this, and this. Because if I don't point it out and the inspector does, they think I failed.
Yes. Yes, without a doubt. I think that's so smart. And
Mhm.
I've heard it say in a class before, if you know, your C's are your analyticals and I am guilty as charged and I probably has I think you are too, Sarah. Are you and
Yeah,
I?
I
Yes.
am. I'm an ID.
Yep, I'd say we're pretty similar there. So I have heard it said in a class before, if you're dealing with a C and somebody who's analytical, and just so everyone on understands here on the call, C's and S's are going to be slower to speak. They are more detailed. I's and D's are both fast, quick paced, and I's are more you're outgoing and D's are direct. So opposite of I is a C. And if you're dealing with a buyer who's completely opposite of you, they are probably thinking like, oh my gosh, calm down, or how's this girl sell a house? And then on the flip side, you could have a buyer who is a high I and you have a meek S who's soft spoken. And then they're probably thinking, how's this person sell a house? So it doesn't matter. Like we all can, like each disc profile, like we're all good at selling houses. But I think it's understanding, just like you said, mirror and matching. If your client is slow and soft spoken, slow down and be soft spoken. Maybe even like take a step back and don't be in their face.
Yes.
I
Thank
think
God for that's the only good thing that came out of COVID. I do stand about 5-6 feet back from them, and it gives us that little break. And like the inspection I just came from, she is definitely like a C. And I was just sitting there and I was just like, I let her speak. I waited a few seconds and then I responded. Like she's just so like casual. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is a little bit of an issue. But
yes.
When I get the inspection report, I'll be like, okay, this is what we got to look at. What are you thinking?
Data. And it's funny. I also think then with D's, it is being okay with D's like to be the leader, the decision maker. And even though I have D in me as well, like they need to feel like you're supporting their decision. Like, even though they're not leading, you need to have them feel like they're leading, you know? Yes. I think that's so great.
That's why I just always ask them, like, what do you think? Not what I think, what do you think? And then I'll give my 2 cents if it means anything.
Yeah. How are you feeling on this? I love that. Okay. This is something I think that comes up all the time. A buyer is approved, say to 325, and they want to see something that just popped on the market listed at 350 in a hot neighborhood. How do you handle the situation?
I have 2 buyers like that right now. Identical. They keep sending me stuff. They're like 30, 40,000 over. How I handle it is I work with a lender. Like I need a lender I come in contact with, I'm talking with daily. Yeah. Especially if I'm dealing with clients. I'm like, hey, let's copy the lender. Let's see how much payments will be at a 350 house. And you know what payments are at 325. And when I get that payment, like, oh, we can't afford it because you can't go under asking right now. That's not a thing unless it's on the market, what, 30, 40 days? Yeah. And I don't know anything staying that long. So I always rope in, I usually have a group text between myself, the lender, and the buyer. So that way, if I'm showing something, I can say like, hey, what's payments? They like this, what's payments on a house with taxes and HOA? Yeah, that's great. I think that's a great idea. And I think setting our buyers up for, set up the expectation before they even start looking. You're good about trying to get a buyer's consult in if you can. And if you do, maybe it's, hey, if 325 is your absolute tippy top, we might only want to look at like 310. And I've been saying about 300 just to give, because unfortunately, we're getting multiple offers again, people are waiving everything again. And I just saw my second appraisal gap I was up against. I haven't seen that much. And I was like, oh boy. So I'm like, hey guys, we got to go like 20,000 less. Yes, it is. It's unreal how much it's still around. I agree. What do you do with the buyer that wants to see something that they're going to hate? I still show it them. I'll give them, I call them 2 or 3, I call them what I call them? I call them like mole houses. Like they're ugly. You're not going to deal with them, but let's just see them. Let's see why you think you'll like it. And usually after 5 minutes in the house, like, yeah, you were right. Like they're like, then they ask me, they're like, what do you see that we're not seeing? Yes. So I'll pull up my iPad or something or my phone and be like, I saw this picture. I didn't like the way this was worded. I looked on the county. I did like an aerial of the house. I was like, it's just not what you're looking for. Yeah. But I'll give them like 1 or 2, I think. Okay. That's good. That's really good. I think it's such a catch-22. It's a fine line between
you want to set a boundary around your time, yet you also want your client to feel heard. So yeah, that's great. And as you are ending the showing, if they love it, how are you closing? If they hate it, how are you closing? And what about the buyer who can't make a decision? So how do you like tie a bow on it when you're done?
So the buyer that loves it, I'm like, okay, if we love it, let's get out of the house, because most houses are recorded, or and by the doors there's recording. I'm like, let's go talk. I always park on the street if I can. So we talk by my car. And I'm like, I'll call the agent now. Let me see what's going on. And I always tell the agent, go, hey, I got my buyers here with me. We just left 123 Main Street. We're considering writing, or we want to write. When do you need it by? Where the terms are looking for, and stuff like that. If they're like on the fence, I said, let's call the lender. Let's see what we want to do. Because I always talk to our lender while I'm at the house. So
Oh, you do?
I do. I always have all my lenders I work with have to be working as much as I do.
Yeah.
And if they don't, I don't work with them. But I say like, hey, they like this house, there's a good chance I'm gonna be reaching out to you. And he's like, give me numbers, I'll have it prepped.
Yeah.
And if they're not sure, then I'll say, let's talk to the lender. Let's see. I'll call the agent, see if there's any timeline, deadline. If I go, you really got to make it fast. And if they're like him and haw, I go, then it's not your house.
Yes.
You're just trying to make it work.
And
then the clients that don't like the house, I'm like, well, we saw this, we'll find better next. Better keeps coming up.
Yep, absolutely. Back to when you said hemming and hawing, what do you do? And I don't feel like this happens quite as much anymore, but what about the people who are just trigger shy and they will be looking at houses for a year and they're just scared? Do you think that is an expectations conversation? Like you don't have the right understanding of their situation, or is it them? How do you handle the ones that are just nope, nope, nope for a year?
I think it's a little bit of both. We gotta go back to sit down or get coffee or something, be like, okay, what are we really looking for? Like, I showed you XYZ that fit what you told me. And then they really start to tell me, like, we're actually looking for this. I'm like, my goal is get you a house. That is best price I can get you, the best conditions. And that way you don't have to worry about selling in a few years.
Yep.
And then if they're just looking to look, I'm like, hey guys, like, I have clients that really need to get into a house. I'll help you, but until you're ready to look, like buy, I'll show you as I can.
Yes. Yeah. Do you get buyer agency agreements signed?
Sometimes, not all the time. I really don't have that issue. I typically don't. I mean, it's happened in the past, but then I say, okay, I never wanted to work with them. Like, they're not going to respect my time. They're not going to respect the next agent that they're with, because they're probably going to lie about something. So I kind of let things go. I say, okay, wasn't much me, move on.
Yes. Yep. Without a doubt. I've heard, back to buyer agency agreements, I've heard people say, listen, of course, like it could be worth the weight of the paper that it's on, but this is my commitment. Like, it's you giving me a commitment, and I'm giving you a commitment in return. If something hits the market on a Friday and you want to see it, and two other of my clients want to see it, and they've signed this agreement with me and you haven't, they are going to come before you in that situation. I don't know.
I kind of do by setting them up on MLS portals, because I get copied on every time something comes up on the portal. So I say, if I'm willing to have hundreds of emails come through and then go through each one of them like you are, like, that shows my level of commitment.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of them, I've dealt with first time home buyers, to people downsizing last home, to people buying the third, fourth home. And a lot of them just, I guess it's their approach, but I don't come off like I'm money hungry. Like, I just kind of like go what it is. So a lot of them, I only had 2 agents out of my 6 years license, 2 buyers out of my 6 years license go with someone else.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. What advice would you give to somebody, whether they're on the call now or watching this later on in the recording, is if somebody's trying to build their business with buyers, what would be the number one piece of advice you'd give, or what sets you apart in the showing that could help them in their business?
Find them houses first. If they send you the house, you're failing.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be on the MLS. My first team I was on, Sylvian Carras, she told me, if you're not looking on the MLS at least 3 or 4 hours a day and not finding them the houses before they send it to you, she goes, you're never going to gain their trust. You lost it.
I agree 100%.
So I go on, it's kind of like I do my lead gen, and then if I can, depending if I'm coaching or not, I'll be on MLS for an hour or two in the morning, early afternoon, and then at night, like around 4 or 5 if I can. But I'm always like, the MLS is pulled up on my iPad, my computer, my phone. Like, there's no reason a buyer should ever send you a house.
Yes.
And that's counting the portal, because that portal is, even though they think it's from you, a lot of them start to get smart and they're like, that's just automated.
For sure. And you know what? I would even add, like, if you don't have a hot sheet, or, you know, like that little market watch personalized to your area where you primarily show, or where your buyers are at, like, please tailor that to you. If you don't know how to do it, ask me, I'll help somebody. I think, and like you said, you check it again later in the day because more houses are coming on. There is, even if you haven't physically been inside the house, if somebody brings up a house, or even if you're at the grocery store and somebody brings up, oh, did you see this in the area you guys live? And you have the knowledge to say, oh, I did. I loved that kitchen. Or yes, I thought it was overpriced. Or it starts to, one, you get to connect with people. And in addition to that, especially if you're newer, you're going to start understanding the areas that you're working in, because you're going to see how much homes are. And that is such good advice. Such good advice, Sarah.
I definitely suggest I know no one wants to get millions of emails, but every time you put someone on a portal, you get notified too. You get the same email. So that way, if you know they're, and you can see an MLS when they're looking. You can tell every time they log on. So if you get to them beforehand, even if it's from the portal, you're still ahead of the game because you're texting them, calling them, or something, saying like, hey, I think we got to see this.
Yes.
And or I've done too, like, hey, this house just came up. I looked at it. It's not going to work.
And here's why. And you know what? Something else you said, I don't know which question I had asked you, but going back, I think the people who are looking forever, you touched on this, and I think it's worth bringing it up again, is you are good about this, like going 3 questions deep. You hear that all the time. I think when people, sometimes they say things just to say things, and they don't even know why they're saying it. So going deeper on those questions and getting a better understanding, they might not even know why they're telling
Or I think they tell you what you want to hear. So that way, because they're uncomfortable in the conversation. A lot of people don't like face-to-face conversations.
Yes.
They hide behind the phone, computer, anything. But that's why I like to have a talk by the car or at a coffee spot. So that way it's like, I have your attention.
Yes.
And I always just tell them, no answer is dumb. No question is dumb. Just tell me what you're thinking. Absolutely.
Great advice, Miss Sarah. Well, I would say if anybody has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. If not, you know where to find Sarah or myself if you have any other questions, and you are just a wealth of information, Sarah.
I'm happy to help.
So very much. Have an awesome day, and we will see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.